Mr. Speaker.
It is my fault. We were conversing. Well, this is down for a 5-minute call, so I'm calling Grant Robertson. 5 minute. Look, I don't know whether the Green Party is taking a split call on this. Are they?
We are.
We are. Okay. So it's a 5-minute call to Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and apologies to the House for having to sort out some matters of logistics there with the Speaker. Mr. Speaker. That's right, my only exercise for the day, Ms. Bennett, but I'll do my best. The important points I wanted to get across about this bill are the extent to which this is actually about the how of remuneration, not the what. And I think that is an important consideration for members of the public who are watching this debate, is what has been debated today is the way in which the salaries of members of parliament, the allowances for members of parliament and other matters are dealt with, rather than the exact amount that members of parliament are paid or the exact amount of travel entitlements or travel privileges rather that we may have. And as my colleague Trevor Mallard says, business expenses, in fact, and he's very right in that regard, and it is something that I think members of the public perhaps sometimes find difficult to understand about the way in which parliamentarians are serviced and resourced and how they're paid, is around that question of travel. And obviously what the bill does is make some changes to the arrangements where the Remuneration Authority will be responsible for accommodation, the travel of family members and travel privileges for former members, while the Speaker retains a responsibility for MPs' travel. And the reason, as I understand it from the Select Committee for that, is because MPs' travel is essentially a business expense. It's a business role. The reason for travel from by MPs, is to undertake our duties. And I've often thought that one of the issues here is that when most people go on an aeroplane or travel, they're going on holiday. And that's what they associate the act of travelling on an aeroplane as being. Not for me, as the MP for Wellington Central, there's no flights from Wilton down to Parliament, but for most of the members of Parliament who are here, they get on an aeroplane to go to work. And the 1-hour commute from Auckland to Wellington is like driving on the motorway in Auckland for MPs. And I can understand and appreciate why, for members of the public who generally find themselves on flights when they are lucky enough to be able to go on holiday, that they might associate air travel in a way that is somehow or other to do with holidays. It's not in this particular instance. It is to do with our role as parliamentarians. And I further understand that part of the justification by the Select Committee for not moving MPs' travel to the Remuneration Authority is because the potential end result of that could be that a Member of Parliament was unable to fulfil their duty as a parliamentarian. They would effectively breach privilege and not be here as a parliamentarian, potentially as the result of a decision by the Remuneration Authority. And that is what distinguishes travel by MPs from the other privileges that are now being handed over to the Remuneration Authority. I have to say, Mr. Speaker, from a personal point of view, I find this unsatisfactory, the whole thing. Labor will be voting for this bill because it's the consensus that was come to by parties at the Select Committee, and it's important on issues like this that we work on the basis of a consensus and a unanimous approach. But I believe personally that the whole issue requires further work. There were other proposals provided that I think could merit consideration. I've heard proposals that that salaries of MPs are set at the start of a 3-year term, and that it's left as that for that whole 3-year term, and everybody has the same expectations about what those salaries will be. They'll be set by the previous Parliament, potentially, and then carried on by a new Parliament. Another idea is the one that you could index the payments to inflation. I think there are a lot of other ways, and for me this is a very awkward piece of legislation. It tries to fix some problems, which I think it does quite well, particularly around MPs with physical and sensory impairments. impairments. It deals with the question of absences of MPs and the deduction of salaries in a much better way that actually acknowledges the fact that people, if they are absent without the authorised leave, should suffer a proper penalty for that. I think the bill's dealt well with those matters. Where I'm less comfortable is that we've got a bit of a muddle of arrangements around the privileges in travel, and I do believe we will probably end up revisiting this. However, this is the consensus, and we are prepared to support it on that basis.
I call Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr Speaker. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou.